For the second time this week, The Athletic has released another bombshell report on the New York Jets, this time suggesting the Jets might cut Aaron Rodgers. We'll break that down and much more all here on a Saturday evening edition of NY Flight Jets Talk.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today? ESPN writer Mr. Rich Cimini, Jets reporter for The Athletic Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer and Jets legend Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Hello everyone, and welcome in to another edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. Smash that like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Really appreciate all the support. You want to call into the show, pin comment in the chat, submit your questions, comments, super chats. I will get to them. And wow, it was, another crazy day in Jetland. Just a random Saturday, Jets in the middle of a bye week. And now, for the second time in a week, The Athletic has released yet another bombshell report on the state of our New York Jets. So we're going to jump right into it. And there are a few massive takeaways here. I'm going to kind of just run through, a few on the list. I think the main one really is the possibility of the Jets in this report saying that they can move on from Aaron Rodgers. Diana Rossini of The Athletic spoke to several executives, and they said they wouldn't be surprised if the Jets moved on from Aaron Rodgers. Now I'm going to pull it up on the screen for you guys to see. If the Jets were to move on from Aaron Rodgers, I know there's a lot of mixed thoughts here on, do we move on from him? Do we not? So here, let me get this. So here are Aaron Rodgers' cap numbers right here. This is his contract right now. I'll zoom in on that and I'll read you what the Jets could do, what the Jets' options really to get rid of Aaron Rodgers next season. Again, this is his over-the-cap profile. So basically, the Jets cut Rodgers before June 1st, 2025, obviously. They owe $49 million in dead cap. That is if they just outright cut him before June 1st next year. And then the next option is if they cut him post June 1st, they owe him $14 million in dead cap in 2025 and $35 million in dead cap in 2026. Then if Rodgers decides to return next season, he comes back and plays for the Jets, his $35 million option will trigger, meaning the Jets will have $35 million in dead cap in 2026. And they also noted the Jets could spread out that $35 million from 2026 to 2028. So a really interesting situation here with the Jets, with Aaron Rodgers and his current contractual situation where he stands right now. And I guess my opinion, you look at that, and if I'm the Jets, I'm going to cut him before June 1st. I don't want him to play next season. I don't think he does. I want this to be something we haven't seen it often in franchise history. I want the new GM, the new head coach to come in, and I want there to be a new quarterback. I want them to draft a guy this year, obviously, and I think Tyrod Taylor is that perfect bridge guy. I want the Jets to eat the majority of their dead cap money next season, get it all over with. Then 2026 is when you have the quarterback has been, developed for a year, and that is when you really want to try to make noise, something like that. Not even necessarily make noise, start the rebuild. I think that's where you try to, build building blocks for, getting to a postseason. So next year, I think the mentality, I think what the Jets' mentality should look like is eat this dead cap money. Cut Rodgers outright before June 1st, eat all the money next season, and move on. The Aaron Rodgers experiment was a massive, it failed. It was a huge failure. Huge failure, to put it lightly. Huge failure, to put it lightly. I mean, this was an absolute joke. The fact we're even talking about cutting this guy before June 1st is insane. And another note in the report today with the topic of Aaron Rodgers is he wants to play in 2025, but not for the Jets. And I find this hard to believe that he'll find another team to play because I worded that incorrectly. I don't think the Jets would get much in return if they look to trade Aaron Rodgers, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone picked him up after the Jets cut him. If and one of the teams I saw listed was the Vikings, if he goes to the Vikings, it is literally Brett Favre all over again. If Aaron Rodgers goes on next season to play for the Minnesota Vikings, it is the Brett Favre experiment all over again, period. So, if I had to make a pick, if Rodgers plays next season, if he plays, I think he plays for the Jets, but anything can happen. I do see a world, I think there is that possibility where he can go on and play for another team. But if I had to make a bet right now, he's playing next season, it's for the Jets. Apparently, Woody doesn't want him back, though. So it's these two bombshell reports from the Athletic have really changed the stance on this team. Really, it's crazy to think. The first one, obviously, Woody calling for the benching of Tony Adams, feeling social media pressure, which led to the signings of Mike Williams, Tyron Smith, trading for Reddick and Devontae Adams. It's just a mess. Joe Douglas being in quote relief once his firing. It was an absolute disaster before he was out of there. The Jets directors of player personnel had more power than him the last few weeks he was there, according to Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer. It's just an absolute mess right now, and that's why you need to start fresh next year. And I think that's what the mentality needs to be right now. And I think the decision to fire Douglas in season wasn't terrible. You could see what Phil Savage has in the tank. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, we've had him on the show a couple times, great guy. He put a column out, and he thinks Savage might be the guy the Jets keep the GM position, not only for the rest of this year, but moving forward. So the Jets have a lot of moving parts right now, and they have time to figure it out. It's crazy to think we're already talking about this, and the Jets are entering their bye week, and we're talking about what the Jets do next season in terms of drafting a quarterback, a new head coach, and a new GM. It's insane. A 3-8 start to the season with sky-high expectations. I think that, you could say that you could play the hypotheticals all you want, but you're only as good as your record is. This team's been the champion of the offseason for so long now. You're only as good as your record is. This team, everything was pieced together for this to be some super team. And I think the bottom line is it's just a collection of talent. They're not a team. They've shown us that. That's what they've proven us. They're a collection of talent, not a team. We've seen that, every single Monday night, Thursday night, Sunday, whenever this team plays. They're a collection of talent. They're not a team. Another note from Rossini in this bombshell was this wasn't sourced. The Rodgers stuff was sourced from executives, but this exact nugget that I'm about to share was her opinion. She says she thinks Eric Mangini, could be the Jets head coach next season, which is really interesting because we hear the stories of Rex Ryan, he wanting to be the head coach, all these players going out and endorsing him. Rex has, gone on, he was on Pardon My Take Barstool with Big Cat and PFT the other day. He was saying it on ESPN 98.7. He wants to be the Jets head coach. He's gone out and said, hey, nobody else is going to play harder for me. LaShawn McCoy backed him up on with Colin Cowherd yesterday. So Rex really wants this job, which is interesting. And now you throw another former name in here, in Eric Mangini, Mangenius, dubbed by the fan base. So it's I don't think he's going to coach the Jets. Let's just be honest here, guys. He hasn't been an NFL coach since 2010. Yeah, with the Browns. His record with the Jets wasn't terrible compared to the head coaches we had. 23-25 record as the head coach of this team. His overall record as a head coach, 33-47. I mean, it would be very interesting if the Jets were to go out and hire him. That interesting would be, the best word I can describe. He's shown he has, he's able to go out and build a roster, and I think that's the only way he gets back in the NFL. What he's shown throughout his coaching career, again, he hasn't been a head coach in the league since 2010, which is going to scare me a bit. It's going to scare me that he hasn't been a head coach in this league since 2010 if the Jets were to go out and get him. Like I said, he's shown he could build a roster in New York. The roster he built, I know Rex was the coach when they went on the 2009-2010 unforgettable run, but he built that roster leading up to when Rex took over. I think I will say, though, the one problem is why I don't think this hire is feasible. Well, first off, he hasn't been in the league in over a decade. Second off, he went out on bad terms with Woody, which is never great. He went out on bad terms with Woody. I think that's going to hurt him. When all's said and done, I don't think Mangini's coaching this team. I do not think Eric Mangini will be the coach of the 2025 New York Jets. Say what's up to everyone in the chat. Submit your questions, comments, super chats. Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Greatly appreciate all of your support. We're going to get into some GM and head coach talk before we get to your comments, questions, super chats, everything in the chat. Submit them as we go throughout the show. Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Appreciate you tuning in. Good to see you, Caden. Appreciate you tuning in. Caden cut Rodgers and tank is the only answer. I can't root for my team to lose, and I'm not a fan of NFL organizations intentionally losing. Caden, I will say that, but I want this team to throw the young players out on the field. I do. I wouldn't mind to see him throw, the younger players out on the field. Bench Rodgers, and that probably won't go over well, but I don't think he's back next year. And I agree. Cut Rodgers and move on. Eat it all next year. Simply move on. Signed, sealed, delivered. Failed miserably. Signed, sealed, delivered. Move on. Kaden, you like Jalen Milroe at quarterback out of Alabama? I haven't seen much on any of these quarterbacks other than Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward, so I'm not really qualified to speak on this yet. Again, we're sitting here on November 23rd talking about it. We're going to draft. College season isn't even over yet. We haven't had the Senior Bowl. We haven't had the Shrine Bowl. So it's going to take me – I'll probably start getting into that sometime next week. I've just been really busy these past few weeks, but I will get into the quarterbacks. I know Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders sit at the top of this class from a quarterback standpoint. I think a lot of people have Milroe going in the second round right now, but Shadur and Cam Ward and Jalen Milroe, they all have that similar style of play. They're all mobile. They all can get out of the pocket, make big plays with their arm. I just haven't seen enough tape on those guys. Caden, wish we saw Jordan Travis in preseason. So do I. I mean, Travis is going to be a really interesting one because he's another low-risk, high-reward. This is a fifth-round draft choice. He is coming off a huge injury, which I think has the potential to hurt him. A broken leg, which is an insane injury, which he suffered in November of last year at FSU. And I think what's going to happen next year, which I hope happens, is Tyrod's the bridge guy. He starts next year. They have the rookie as the backup, whether that's Milroe, Nussmeier, Cam Ward, Shadur Sanders, any of these guys. They'll be the backup, and then Jordan Travis is the third string. But I want to see it. It sucks that he's with this huge injury, and it's not even like they could bench Rodgers right now and start him. He's basically in for a full redshirt season the rest of the way. So, yeah, he's a really interesting player. He was great at FSU. He was on pace to be a first-round, second-round guy before he got hurt. I think he's a very high ceiling. I'll leave it at that for Jordan Travis. Caden, Vikings have J.J. McCarthy, though. Yeah, that's a good point, but are they going to want to start McCarthy after he's coming off this leg injury? What I think the Vikings end up doing is they re-sign. Yeah, although Darnold's starting to show his true colors, I think they end up re-signing Darnold, and he starts next year for the Vikings. I think that's what they end up doing and give McCarthy another year. And his surgery was really bad. I think they said that has the potential to go through like a year and a half, possibly even 2 years. So who knows if he'll even be fully healthy to take snaps at training camp this summer. Coondog, my preference is Ben Johnson. Coondog, appreciate you tuning in, and I love Ben Johnson. I absolutely love him, and he said he wants to call plays if he's going to be a head coach in this league. I love that out of him. He's not coming to the Jets though. Let's just be honest. He's not coming to the Jets. I have like a realistic list of the guys I want, and I have like a fantasy land list. Guys I want in my fantasy land. Like I pray to God these guys come. My A tier, it's Todd Monken, Ravens offensive coordinator, Mike Vrabel, former Titans head coach, and it's Ben Johnson. And get to the rest of the questions in the chat. You guys can continue to submit them. But after this, I'm going to get into an underrated head coach candidate I have in mind that I don't know if you guys will really like it, but I have some evidence to back it up here. Wildwave, good to see you in the chat. I wouldn't mind Eric in the front office. Eric knows talent. That's a really interesting idea there, and I think it's a great point. Yeah, he built those two. He ended up constructing those two rosters that went on to go on the 2 straight AFC Championship runs. So yeah, I could see him maybe stepping into my concern is he hasn't been in the league. He hasn't had a role on a team since 2010. That's my concern. That's my concern with Mangini if he were to come. Jets organization, also the falling out with Woody is going to hurt him. We got a Packers fan in here, number 1 Packers gamer. Appreciate you tuning in. Release Rodgers so we could back up Love just in case Love gets injured again. Yeah, it's an interesting point there, Packers gamer. I can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not, but yeah, what are the Packers fans? If you're still in here, Packers gamer, submit your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the Rodgers situation? Could he reunite back in Green Bay? That would be crazy. I mean, we know Aaron Rodgers could do anything, so. Who knows? Does he reunite? Does he go back to Green Bay? That would be crazy. You're here. Appreciate you sticking with us, number 1 Packers gamer. Now I'm going to get into the head coach and general manager talks. Like I said, continue to submit your questions in the chat. Appreciate you all tuning in here on this Saturday evening. My underrated head coach candidate. I don't know if you guys are going to like this one, but it's Cliff Kingsbury, former Cardinals head coach and current Washington Commanders offensive coordinator. He calls plays for the Commanders on the offensive side of things. And I guess we could start with his run with the with the Cardinals. He first off, he actually interviewed with the Jets for their job, that the head coaching job in 2020 that they ended up giving to Adam Gase, and we all know 2019, excuse me. We all know how that went. So they were deep in talks with Kingsbury, and when they were searching for a head coach, they ended up going with Gase. He ended up landing in Arizona, and they were also deep in talks last year when he was a senior offensive consultant with the USC Trojans. There were talks of him joining the Jets offensive staff. So they have that connection. They've already, spoke about this stuff, whether it's with Woody Johnson in this organization. He was a backup with the team is another thing I like about him. So, I think he spent a year or two with the Jets, and he only had a year or two in the NFL. Both seasons in his career where he spent with the Jets. He's former backup quarterback, and spent 4 seasons with Arizona. 28-37 record, which isn't terrible. I think my biggest thing here is I'm looking for someone who has experience as a head coach in this league. And Mike Vrabel right now out of this whole list is the only one. Well, Rex Ryan, you can argue, and Eric Mangini, but we'll get into Rex. We spoke about Mangini. We'll get into Rex in a little, but Mangini, not Mangini, excuse me. Kingsbury, he spent 4 seasons as the Arizona head coach. 28-37, like I said, isn't terrible. He has that head coaching experience, and now he's calling plays for the Washington Commanders. Going back to his time in Arizona, I mean, he had a bad 4-13 season in which he went out on, but he led the Cardinals to an 11-6 season. They got into the playoffs, so he's done good things as a head coach in this league. Again, he ended on a bad note, the 4-3 campaign. See, he missed a year. He was out of coaching for a season. Then he came back last year. USC Trojans, senior offensive assistant, I believe his title was. Worked closely with Caleb Williams, helped develop him, get ready for the next level. And now this year, he stepped into this role as Commanders' offensive coordinator, calling plays and developing Jaden Daniels. Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels have both credited Kingsbury for fully developing the LSU product. So you look at the Commanders' numbers, the offense in which he's called plays for: 366.7 yards per game, 6th best in the league; 5.9 yards per play, 6th best in the league; 21.7 first downs per game, 5th best in the league; 2.8 touchdowns per game, 7th in the league. So he's their top 7 offense right now in this league, and he's calling plays. He's helped develop Jaden Daniels, who looks to be a front runner for the Rookie of the Year trophy. So I think my biggest thing with Kingsbury, my 2 points why I really want him, he has experience as a head coach. He's brought a team to the playoffs. His record is not too ugly as a head coach. And then my second, main point here is he's been able to develop quarterbacks. He, helped develop Kyler Murray his first few seasons in the league, and now you look what he's done with Daniels. So compared with, along with his head coach experience, along with what he's shown to develop quarterbacks, call offensive plays, the thing is, you're going to need a strong defensive coordinator under him. You are, and I think the Jets could get that. I think Ulbricht's gone. We're going to say that. I think Ulbricht's gone. I think he's, had his time with this organization. He's going to get a DC job next year, but I think Kingsbury needs to bring in a defensive guy, a really solid defensive coordinator, for him to be a talented head coach in the league, because he's such a great offensive-minded guy. He just lacks defense. We saw it in his run with Arizona as their head coach. So if you can bring in a good defensive coordinator and get Kingsbury as your head coach, I'm a big fan of it. I already see Kundug. I'm not opposed to Kingsbury. Yeah, everyone in the chat, we have 99 of you watching. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Throw your head coach thoughts, throw your GM thoughts in the chat. We're going to get to head coach GM. We're going to get to the GM talks in a second. Thoughts on Kingsbury and all this. Wildwave, Ulbrich will struggle to get another DC job. I think he'll end up landing one somewhere, Wildwave. I just don't think it's with the Jets organization. It does hurt him that the defense has struggled as he stepped into this head coaching role, but you still can't deny the numbers that they had the past few seasons under him. So I one way or another, whether it's this next year or the year after, I think he ends up getting a DC job somewhere. I think that's where we disagree here, Wildwave. My Jet super fan Vrabel, yeah, Vrabel seems to be the number one, option within the fan base, and I've said that all along. I think Vrabel's a great option. I just don't think it's realistic. I don't think he's going to want to come to the Jets. Rather, someone like who I just spoke about, Cliff Kingsbury, who's, he's taken the path to get back into the league's head coach. He's eager to get back into, one of the league's 32 head coaches. So, it's, Kingsbury is my number one realistic option. But overall, if I had to, just pray. It's Vrabel, Ben Johnson, Todd Monken. They're my A tier right now. That's who I'm a fan of. Overall, Kingsbury, I think I had him as like a B- for a head coach candidate. Overall, just counting the Vrabels, counting the Todd Monkins, all those guys. Ben Johnson, someone New York Jets super fan, just threw in the chat, all those guys. I think I had him at a B-. So I think he's a solid option for this team, though. Developing quarterbacks, his head coach experience. You want to call into the show, voice your opinion. You can do so by clicking the pinned comment in the chat. 106 of you watching across all platforms. Really do appreciate all the continued support. Continue to drop your thoughts, questions, comments, super chats, all in the chat. Rex Ryan time, guys. Wow. It has been an interesting, it's been the past few weeks now with Rex and his campaign to be the Jets head coach next season. He's really gone all out. He really has, appearing on these shows, saying, pleading his case. Why, he said back in 2014, if it was up to Woody Johnson, he'd be his head coach forever. So he's been campaigning hard. He's been doing everything he can to be Jets' next head coach. He said, no one's going to play as hard, under anyone else but me. He really thinks he has the potential to turn this team into contenders into what he called 2 weeks. He said he could turn this team into contenders. So he clearly wants the job. I'm not opposed to it. My only thing is, we remember Rex. This whole fan base remembers Rex for the unforgettable 2009-2010 back-to-back AFC Championship run, which they should. That was incredible. 2010 the Jets haven't been in the playoffs since they fired Rex. So, you could point to that, but you can't forget that last season where he went out, 4-13. He hasn't been an NFL head coach since 2016. I think the intangibles I really like out of Rex is his energy, how he coaches. I think he's going to get players excited. I think he's going to hold players accountable, and I think he's going to discipline them. And I think that is what this team needs. And it's, what they do on the offensive side of things has been interesting. Because if they were to bring in, you could say the success that Mark Sanchez had under Rex Ryan, as a point, he can develop quarterbacks. That was all on the offensive side of things. So if the Jets, I think if Rex is the head coach, the Jets need to bring in a very strong offensive coordinator, and I trust Rex to bring in the right people. I wouldn't mind if he was named the head coach of the team. I wouldn't view it as a negative. I know there's mixed reviews right now. A lot of fans, let's go Rex 2025. Rex, Ryan 2025. And there's a lot of fans like, nope, we are not bringing Rex back. I kind of sit in the middle right now as to what I'm kind of, I'm cool. I'm cool either way. I don't have a strong feeling either way. I'm just neutral on this, really. So they bring Rex in. I think there's a ton of bright spots. And if they don't bring Rex in, I think there are a ton of bright spots as well. So, I think Rex has a lot of positives to, his resume, his coaching profile, and I think there's a lot of negatives to it. So kind of mixed here on this one, which makes a really interesting point. If it comes down to like someone like Rex or Cliff Kingsbury, I'm probably going to have to go Cliff Kingsbury. Again, I'd put Rex Ryan, I'd put him in that like Aaron Glenn C tier for the Jets for the head coaching job. Given, he hasn't been in the league for a little while, is he able to, bring someone in to run a modern day offense? I trust him to do so, but you still have to, although I trust him, anything could happen in this league. So there's going to have to be a clear plan in place that he's going to bring in someone senior who's had experience in this league to run this modern day offense. And if Aaron is somehow back on the Jets in 2025, that's going to be a whole different thing. But the things I like about Rex is his energy. Players are going to want to play for him, and he holds people accountable. Those are my three favorite things. My concerns are he hasn't been in the league for a little while. How is he going to, is he going to bring in someone to coach the offensive side of things who has good experience? Is he going to be able to develop a quarterback? And what Rex are we getting? Are we getting the 2009, 2010 Rex, or are we getting the 2014 Rex? I think that's what it all depends on. There's a lot of question marks, and there's also a lot of positives on that side of things for Rex Ryan. So that's my stance. Submit your questions, your thoughts on Rex and all things New York Jets. Now we're going to keep it moving with some GM talk. Top general manager candidates for the 2025 season. I'm going to start with someone who's been, getting floated around a lot, and that's Lions assistant general manager Ray Agnew. He spent a while as in the Rams organization as their director of player personnel, and He then Brad Holmes, the Lions' current GM, who was also with the Rams, Agnew and Holmes overlapped in LA. Holmes took Agnew with him to Detroit, become the Lions' assistant general manager. He's played a huge role now in drafting these young pieces, as well as the roster construction of the stout Lions team over the past few years. What he helped, the players he helped draft with the Rams. So here are some of the names: Jalen Ramsey, Leonard Floyd, Deshaun Robinson, Darius Williams, and Andrew Whitworth. Those are some of the players he drafted. And something that's really interesting, as we all know, this league, the NFL, there are connections, and that's how people get jobs in this league. His son, Ray Agnew III, is in his 8th season with the Jets in the front office, where he serves as their pro scout. So you have that connection there paired with a lot of his success. Agnew's someone I like, but there's someone else in the Lions organization. You might have heard me talk about him on Jake's show. I've talked about him with Gunny on Gunny's show, and he's also in the Lions organization. Like I said, John Dorsey, Lions senior personnel executive, and Dorsey's my number one option here for a surplus of reasons. First, he has the GM experience. 2 stints as a GM in this league with the Browns and the Chiefs. Here's some of the names. He's first off, he's 56 and 55, so he's over 500 as a general manager in his career. And here's some of the guys he drafted: Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, Marcus Peters, Eric Fisher, Baker Mayfield, Denzel Ward. Those are the top 7 draft picks John Dorsey has had as a general manager in his career. He has he's experienced in the actual role, and that's why I like him. He's been able to, first up, Baker didn't pan out in Cleveland, but he's made a career out of himself. Patrick Mahomes, as we know, he's arguably already the greatest quarterback of all time. So, he has experience. He's drafted these solid quarterbacks as well as other position players. He has general manager experience. He's clearly my number one option on this list. Another guy I like is Mike Borgonzi, Chiefs assistant general manager. He's been with them since 2009. He's been with them all the time. They've won they've won the AFC, won the Super Bowl. So he has a lot of experience. Ed Dodds is someone who's highly respected among the league. He's the Colts assistant general manager. He joined the organization in 2017. Then he stepped into the assistant GM role in 2018. He's someone to watch. He began his career as a scout in 2007. In Cunningham, Bears assistant general manager, is a name who continues to come up in talks. He's very, very young, only 38 years old, and he's in 17th season working in front offices. Andy Weidel is my final candidate I really like on this list. He's the Steelers assistant general manager right now. He actually interviewed twice for the Steelers' actual general manager job before being hired as their assistant GM, where he's worked under Omar Khan. So a lot of solid candidates. Right now, my number one choice, like I stated there, is John Dorsey, the Lions' senior player personnel executive, just due to his experience and all he's accomplished throughout his career as an executive. So I'm a huge fan of him, what he brings to the table. But if I had to put together a top 3, it would probably be Ray Agnew, Mike Borgonzi, and Ray Agnew, Mike Borgonzi, and John Dorsey. That's my top 3 right now. While we like Spytek, he's a good talent evaluator. Yes, Spytek with the Buccaneers. He's another one to watch. Brandon Brown with the Giants. He's another name to watch. There's a lot of guys out there. And I agree. Spytek, he's done a great job evaluating talent for the Bucs. I believe he's with the Bucs. Let me search him up. Let's see. Let's see. John Spytek. I said Jason Spytek. I was just up. John Spytek. Yeah, he's someone, again, that he's all over the place here for a general manager job. Let's see what I have on him. And Mike Greenberg's another one I've been hearing about. He's also in the Buccaneers organization. So yeah, that's another name. Like I said, I keep coming up here in GM talks. I don't think Brandon Brown's gonna. He's a candidate. I don't think he's gonna end up coming. He is available though. He's someone who's gonna be available this GM cycle. When all said and done, I think the Jets end up getting someone like a Ray. When all said and done, I think Ray Agnew is their GM next year because his son works in the organization. He has this experience. Ideally, I want it to be Dorsey, but I would be more than happy with someone like Ray Agnew coming in here. Brandon Brown scares me a bit, although he's a great executive. Just Giants haven't had much success which kind of scares me for a GM. I want a GM from a team that's had a ton of success recently, and that's what a John Dorsey brings you. Ian Cunningham, the Bears haven't had a ton of success, but he's young. He's a rising star, and he's put together some nice drafts. He's in my Borgonzi, a ton of experience, Ray Agnew experience, John Dorsey experience, all on winning teams. I want someone, when all's said and done, ideally, I want someone who has experience on being a part of a winning front office. I think that's what all those guys give you, except Brendan Brown. And you can argue Cunningham, but like I said, Cunningham's a rising star, and he's going to get a job sometime soon. But appreciate you guys all tuning in here on this Saturday evening show. 180 of you watching across all platforms. So everyone, smash that like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Get your final questions, comments, super chats in. Call in the show, pinned comment in the chat. Let's see. Make sure I didn't miss any questions, comments, super chats. Get your final thoughts in. Here we go. Wild Wave, I don't want Greenberg unless you get a talent evaluator as head coach. I haven't gone too deep into Greenberg or Spytech. The guys I listed earlier from my Jets X Factor article, I went really deep into. I don't know a ton about them, so I trust you, Wild Wave. So, in terms of a talent evaluator for head coach, that's where kind of the Mangini comes into play, which you mentioned earlier, which I spoke about him. You said him possibly stepping into a front office role. So yeah, Mangini, if he somehow came, he's been great at building, and constructing these championship rosters. Wildly, what would your thoughts be if the Jets brought in Eric Mangini as their head coach and Greenberg as their general manager? I see you saying Greenberg is the cap guy. Yeah, another position I want the Jets to look at that was literally Wild Wave. That is literally what I was about to say. Mike Tannenbaum. I was about to say for football operations. I want the Jets to bring in someone. I know you're comparing him to Greenberg here, but I want the Jets to bring in someone for that football operations position. Names I'm hearing floating around right now through Jets Twitter and the source news everywhere. Curtis Martin, Pete Carroll. Someone I threw in there is Mike T. Wild Wave just mentioned him in the chat. I want to see Mike Tannenbaum. If he came back to the Jets as part of their football operations team, I would not be disappointed. I like Mike Tannenbaum. Big fan of him. He was one of my first ever interviews on this show here, and I think he still has something left in the tank. And I think he, still has, I think he could still be a talented executive in this league. I would not be opposed to bringing in someone like Mike T as the Jets, president of football operations. I don't think that's a bad decision at all. I'd be fully on board with that. I think the game passed Eric and Rex. That's what I was saying earlier. I mean, that's why I don't feel too confident with bringing in someone like Rex. Well, Rex hasn't coached since 2016. A little less. It's next year would be 9 years, but. Eric Mangini hasn't been a head coach in this league since 2010. Since 2010, Eric Mangini has not been a coach in this league since 2010. They both scare me. If I had to pick one, though, it would be Rex. If I had to pick one out of those two, it would be Rex, but they both scare me in their own different ways. They both have positives. They both have a lot of negatives. That's the way I view it there when you want to look at, possibly adding someone who hasn't been a head coach in this league in a very long time. But appreciate you guys tuning in. Smash the like button. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. That'll do it for me. I am Connor Long signing off. JTS Jets, Jets, Jets.